Welcome back for our final game of the day. It's Golden Guardians versus OpTic Gaming. It's time to get things rolling by looking at the starting roster. Selecting the blue side, it's the Golden Guardians, with Lourlo in the top lane, Contractz in the jungle, Mickey at mid, Deftly bottom side, Matt on support, and Coach Tyler.
And that means loading up and facing them on the red side, it's OpTic Gaming. In the top lane, starting is Dhokla, Akaadian in the jungle, PowerOfEvil mid, bot laner Arrow, and the new support Big with Coach Zabutin.
Now, coming into this game, Zyrene, these are the two teams that made the earliest moves in the offseason, and they did so for good reason.
Yeah, last split, OpTic ended in 9th place, but their core of PowerOfEvil and Arrow needed some people to help kind of support them, have a better supporting cast, and now that supporting cast has been changed out a bit, Big, a large voice on the team that could enable Arrow and do a lot of the shot calling. Because remember, OpTic, they had a lot of games where they were a team fight away, an Ezreal Q away, a Baron bait away from winning those games. And upgrading the shot calling is potentially something that is going to be the solution here. They also added to their academy roster a Lourlo, who's also a possible solution to OpTic's top lane struggles that plagued them a lot last split. But as you see, they're starting Dhokla today and believe that he's the guy to kind of get them the W.
And a win here could spell a reversal of fortune for either team. A reminder that for Golden Guardians, they did not pick up a win till week 4 of last split. It was the second of their 2 games in week 4 as well. They went 7 losses before getting a single win. Picking up a win here would be a huge morale boost and one hell of a more fiery start than what they had in the spring split.
Yeah, because Golden Guardians, it was clear that they felt that they needed more firepower, and they picked up Mickey in the mid lane here, and he was super aggressive in Academy. We'll see if that does translate to the LCS stage, and the hope is that this one change will let everything else fall into place for this team, because they had some good games. Contractz definitely looked like they were ramping up towards the end of the split. Slap a more aggressive mid laner in there, change the shot calling a bit without high, and Golden Guardians are saying we're doubling down on the roster we had with just one shift.
All right, talk goes so far, but it's your actions that's really going to show us which one of these teams will emerge superior here today. We're into Champion Select. Let's see how they want to start this one off. Renekton and Taric banned away by the Golden Guardians. The response from OpTic Gaming, that ever-present Talia ban, and the Zoe ban to go along with it.
Yep, Talia I think is banned pretty much almost 100% of the time right now.
It's universal.
It's just such a strong jungler and flex pick as well. And the Aurelia I think is kind of the second most banned. That leaves Camille as another big one. I actually think Camille would not be a bad pick very early on for Golden Guardians. Lourlo plays it, Contractz plays it. It's a very good jungler on top of it. So we'll see what they end up going for here. As their first pick, there's a lot wide open, and we've seen a variety of things.
I really like this lock-in of the Graves from Golden Guardians. We've seen both of these junglers play aggressive picks in the past. Akaadian shined back in the days of lethality jungling when he could play Rengar, and then even when it transitioned to Graves, he did so well. Denying that from him, as well as picking it up for Contractz, seems solid. The response from OpTic Gaming, going to be grabbing the Ornn and the Zhao.
Yeah, like you said, even I think Akaadian was one of the first people to jump on Graves, even when he was like not in the NALCS. He was just playing it in solo queue. And so, yeah, good takeaway there. They get in the Zhao, which does do quite well into the Graves. The phase rush allows you to avoid him, run away if you want to, chase him down if you do get stronger than him.
Yeah.
And then the ultimate will negate him in team fights on top of it.
Lock in for Golden Guardians. Going to be Brand now. We got to see a little bit of this earlier in Academy this week. We've also seen it a bit around the world.
We saw it today in the Cloud9 clutch game.
Yeah, and the Cloud9 clutch game earlier today. I was trying to go historically, like chronologically, Zyrene. I'm trying to keep things in order here.
Sorry. I'd just like to go in a different chronological start from most recent to go back.
Okay, so we have similar chronological goals. They just happen to be...
We'll meet in the middle.
Opposite. Yeah, exactly. We'll meet in the middle, as all good duos do. It's all about the compromise, Zyrene. And right now, the Golden Guardians are also going to meet in the potential mid lane with the Lulu pick that we've seen a lot of mid these days.
Yeah, and I have no idea, because people talk about like there's all these bruisers running around. There's also a lot of mages running around too. The Brand Lulu is potentially even a bottom lane of itself. And the Lulu doesn't have to be a mid laner. You don't have to like funnel resources into it. And so a lot of flex picks. And this is funny because I remember champions like usually have 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 potential flex pick champions at a
3
time.
was rare.
Depending on the meta, right?
Back in the day.
And then you would ban out a lot of them. Or they'd be first picks. Like, we got first pick Lulu. This can go 2 places. Now, there's just so many flex picks. The roles are all up in the air. And so the champion selection, the coach is kind of facilitating what people want to create a composition is so important. And remember, Golden Guardians had a new coach and Coach Tyler come in halfway through the split for them. And then Zabutin for OpTic Gaming stepped up as a coach who was a caster back in France this year when OpTic formed their team. So these guys on the stage, this is their second split here, and we're seeing how they craft these compositions for their teams. Kind of get them all on the same page.
Going into the second part of the bans, the Camille that you were potentially talking about as maybe a pick for Golden Guardians will now be a ban from Golden Guardians. The responses from OpTic Gaming, Aatrox and Singe, 2 of those top lane terrors, taken off the table.
Yeah, I actually think those are 2 of the hardest to deal with top lane champions because they're strategies that are like Taric, Yi in the mid lane, right? And people have to kind of go towards it, and it changes what the other team wants to do. Singe does the same thing where he starts proxying waves over and over again, flanks your team. He has to kind of change the layout of how the other team plays, and then you play less of your own win condition when you're against Singe, and you try to make sure that you don't you try to like not play less of your own, and you try to make sure theirs doesn't come online. Is I guess what I'm getting at there. So Singe changes everything, and I like the ban away as well as the Aatrox, which is very self-sustainable.
Yeah, Aatrox is one of those champions that if left alone on an island, like you and I were actually talking earlier today about how the state of top lane can be more islandy than ever these days, especially if the jungler and mid are running around together and bot lane's doing their crazy bruiser kill lane thing. You don't want to be left alone versus Aatrox most of the time, and Braum now locked in on the side of OpTic Gaming. Taric banned away. Braum's one of those other big melee supports that shows up and can work with very little economy and just make things happen.
And he is flexible. Like,
Yep.
I don't think they'll do it on OpTic's side, but there is always the possibility that it's a super Xin Zhao composition where Xin Zhao will constantly farm mid and jungle and go back and forth, and the Braum just kind of sets it up. And Braum is really good in those compositions when you have somebody who has an auto attack reset. So Camille Braum, for Braum is the mid laner, Xin Zhao Braum, where you have the Q to reset on both Xin Zhao and Camille. And we'll see, because if OpTic Gaming lock in another champion that looks like it's a support here, then it would be a super jungle composition.
OpTic have 8 seconds left to make that last pick. Golden Guardians picking up the Mundo and the Rakan for themselves, and Viktor will be the final choice here for OpTic Gaming. And honestly, I wouldn't expect to see the super gold funnel strategy from the side of OpTic Gaming, not with PowerOfEvil being your mid laner. This guy who honestly had some incredible performances in Spring Split, who a lot of people were looking at saying this is the standout player on the side of OpTic Gaming. I would not expect you to put him on a support if you're the ones making the decisions on the side of OpTic. He'll be on the Viktor this time.
Yeah, and this is a champion that he was even playing when it wasn't really meta with the fleet footwork and going through like Lichbane builds and experimenting with it. It's also a good champion to play into Lulu. You force out her ultimate very early on in fights with your burst, and then you do kind of have just the wave clear over her once you start getting your items. Viktor's actually quite good because the cost of Lost Chapter went up, and remember, Viktor's Hex Core didn't change in cost, so even though AP items got reworked and moved around, Viktor now actually backs at about the same time as most other mid laners do, sometimes a little earlier to get his first upgrade. And so he's in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, for those who don't remember, that's actually what took Viktor away from his super meta top tier status, was when that item got nerfed, and his price point just felt so much worse compared to everyone else that wanted to build the Lost Chapters. So I really think that's a fantastic point and can't be understated in terms of what this champion will now be able to do as we head towards the Rift. For the final time today, Golden Guardians and OpTic Gaming, 2 squads that finished in a less fantastic place than they would have liked to in spring and want to change that with a win here today.
And you said it really kindly, but these were the bottom 2 teams from spring. They come into summer saying, we have to change something. For Golden Guardians, it was the mid lane, the shot calling duties as well. And for OpTic, it was the bottom lane and the shot calling duties. So both teams are saying we needed a change in macro, as well as just a change on who's playing on the Rift.
OpTic moving around as a 5-man unit into the river early on. Going to go for the invade here. Big and Arrow will be the first 2 that they see. Golden Guardians backing away from this one. They don't have everyone here, so there's no reason to take any kind of a fight. Mystic Shot's going to miss. Gleaming Quills will do the same. OpTic still continues moving forward. No fear here. Throws down the ward by the Raptor Pit just to get some of that deeper vision starting off. but it's the Golden Guardians who are saying, okay, fine, you want to go 5 men strong into our jungle, we'll just go into yours, set down some similar vision using Contractz and Lourlo.
Yep, just trading sides and having the Braum Ezreal, even if you think back to MSI or even before that, this was a very potent composition where I think if teams had it, they said we're invading no matter what, because the Ezreal wants Klepto, wants to get Qs even if it's just for the gold. So if you find anybody, it's a positive for you. Speaking of find somebody, Dhokla
getting a little bit too close to that brush that unfortunately had a couple of people waiting for him, and Lourlo and Contractz can now walk themselves right back out towards that red buff that spawns at the perfect time for them, and they'll steal this one away. Should be no contest with Dhokla out of the picture.
Does mean that Dhokla uses his potion. He's going to get to the lane with a little bit less HP, and that may make the matchup a little bit worse for him.
Big and Arrow take a little bit of damage in passing there as they make their way through that tri-brush into the lane. Deftly and Matt couldn't take an extended trade because you're Brand versus an auto attacker, so you just go for the poke and back away, but hey, every little bit helps.
Yeah, I do like the Braum here in terms of the composition because it makes it so that the Brand ultimate will just fizzle if it hits the Braum first, right? He has kind of the wind wall, or at least destroys projectiles on top of it. But you do have to watch out because this is the round him up, burn him down bottom lane where
it's really deadly.
The Rakan will go in with the charm, round people up, and then the Brand just throws out the ultimate.
Brand can connect onto multiple targets using both the Pillar of Flame and Conflagration. You can get multiple procs of the passive over and over and over again, and everyone has to scatter, or you're just going to see health bars explode left, right, and center. But if they can pull that off as this game goes on, things are going to go well for them. We'll see if that becomes the case or not.
It's a very potent team-fighting bottom lane, and Golden Guardians look a little bit more team-fighty in their comp. The question is their physical damage is mostly Contractz, whereas on the opposite side, they have a little bit more physical damage for OpTic, a little less magic damage, which is kind of what you want up against Mundo. We just saw a game where it was too much magic damage versus a Mundo, and they wouldn't be able to kill him. So we'll see what it looks like here when we get to the team fights, but I very much think so that Golden Guardians really want to have those fights around Brand and Rakan.
Right, last game we saw a composition where the only physical damage was in Zhao. Going up against a Mundo, that makes Mundo nigh unkillable as long as he itemizes correctly and positions himself in the correct ways. So this time around, having Arrow on that Ezreal, being able to supply the extra physical damage should be a pretty big factor in those fights.
And we're still seeing people, even though like people are talking about the meta is up in the air, on some champions that they're very comfortable on. Lourlo's still on a tank that actually has some kill potential in lane and out of lane. Contractz on an aggressive jungler. And then you have Matt on this champion that he gets to pull the trigger on. And I know Matt had some confidence issues last split in the middle in terms of his playmaking. And now that he's taken on a lot of the shot calling duties for Golden Guardians, I assume he's going to be going in with less hesitation.
Speaking of shot calling and confidence, I like to see Big rotating around early like this. You talked about how this guy, the name Big is appropriate. He's got a big voice on the team. This is a guy that likes to be very communicative. He likes to talk to everybody else, make sure they're all on the same page. And now he's rotating around, seeing if maybe there's an opportunity to set something up. He'll be there.
And he's a positive force on the team, too. He's somebody who's always positive. He's always kind of bringing people's spirits up. And OpTic, sometimes when you have those games that are close, hold on, Mickey.
Trying to flash out. Wind becomes lightning, but lightning's not enough. Mickey walks away with 7 HP.
That was so close. Like you said, single digits. They get dropped down to 3 exactly. And that is so close. The difference, that is just a minion auto attack. It is anything.
Somebody looks at you wrong, you might lose 3 HP.
Sometimes that happens, but still, that's just, it's so close. He blows the flash, though, and they get PowerOfEvils and Akaadians. They force him back. He'll lose a little bit of CS since he's not running teleport in this lane. But that's kind of what they get out of it here. And they'll see if there's a repeat gank. But this gives Contractz actually more pressure in the jungle, because it gives him the opportunity to go in when he has flash and chase down Viktor, chase down Zhao.
And again, I'm looking at both of these junglers as aggressive junglers, and Akaadian in the mid lane has decided it's time for a return trip here against Mickey, who steps into the gravity well. PowerOfEvil just gonna hang out, trade with him a bit there. OpTic aware that it seems like Mickey's a bit too far forward to be alone. They can smell something a little bit funny here.
Which is funny, because this is just Mickey. Mickey plays this way back on Team Liquid Academy. I was watching him, and he's going past the halfway point.
He's insanely aggressive.
All the time. If there's anything that you can say to define like Mickey's style, it's aggressive. Sometimes overly aggressive, but he is always pushing up. And if they have control of the river like they do, and you see on the Golden Guardians' right-hand side of the river, then you don't know exactly where Contractz is, and if you're trying to read Mickey, it's like the jungler's always there.
Right. Which does make things very difficult, because although you think, oh, we should be able to punish him, sometimes it doesn't work out if the jungler is actually there. Contractz and Mickey now moving down together towards this bottom side. Big underneath the turret. Matt has to dash away, and Golden Guardians just aren't quite strong enough yet to make this collapse and this dive work.
Yeah, no level 6s for Mickey, no level 6 there for Contractz either. But once Matt gets level 6, that's kind of where it turns around and the engage becomes very quick. So if they're already making rotations like that and looking for the opportunity, that's good for Golden Guardians. Because remember, they weren't a very proactive team last split. They would kind of wait around, slowly lose their lanes. And OpTic were kind of too proactive. Akaadian getting caught out, not on the same page. And so the alignment is what you're looking for OpTic. Whereas Golden Guardians, you want to see those early moves. You want to see them often.
Very even game we got here so far, Zyrene. Both sides farming up about equally, but it looks like
no flash on Mickey.
Dhokla, who wants to set this play up here against Mickey, does manage to find the knockup. There's your follow-up, there's your ignite, your ulti comes through, and PowerOfEvil shows him the power of Viktor, grabs the first blood for OpTic game.
And that's fantastic. Remember, Dhokla, he came in subbing in for Zig in the last split, in the middle of it when they started having some issues, and then boom, we're seeing him roam down from the top lane, affect the map, no longer that rookie status for him, and he's playing with the team and sets PowerOfEvil up because that was the flash that was blown where Mickey got away with 3 HP.
Let's take another look at exactly how they do it. There's the horn. There's the Ornn.
Oh, that's a strike right there. Just lines it up, knocks him down, and then it's just an easy follow-up there from PowerOfEvil. That Ornn engage range is gigantic. We're seeing why it's banned all the time. It's been seeing so much play for so long. And he's even sacrificed some CS to do that, to roam down from the top lane.
Speaking of sacrificing CS, I want to reiterate the point that you mentioned earlier. No teleport on Mickey means every single time they gank him, they set him behind, they shove these waves up, he is losing his economy. 42 CS to 57. Now as PowerOfEvil gets back into lane, that's going to become even worse. He's about 20 farm behind at 7 minutes.
Yeah, and he spent his money on boots to get him back to lane a little bit faster, you know, skitter around a little bit quicker, but still, it's not going to be enough here to really help him too much in this lane. It's mostly just for Summoner Spell cooldown reduction, the movement speed to avoid the Viktor laser, and he's still taking boatloads of damage though because there's already the upgrades coming through for PowerOfEvil. And if OpTic had decided playing around PoE seems like a really good strategy because it was something that was very close to working for them multiple times in the last split, then that's very scary when you're going up against OpTic as a mid laner, especially a new mid laner on a team that's all the same except for you. Getting them to play around you can be hard.
Contractz deciding that this is a good time to head for the Earth Drake, but he will decide to call away from that one. You can see that Akaadian was very close. Didn't actually go in and check it, but Contractz just not thinking that it's a safe enough bet to go with. The worst thing you could possibly do at that point is end up going for that. Akaadian happens to walk by, picks up 300 gold as well as a free neutral objective. I can understand Contractz' hesitation on that one, wanting to back himself out, make more of a sure thing later on. And for Contractz, remember, this is still a player who switched over to Golden Guardians after being on Cloud9, which was a more successful team than Golden Guardians was last split, was a player who doesn't have a ton of experience in the LCS just yet, and is a player who is still looking to prove himself as one of the big guys, one of the guys who can compete with everybody, right? He's a really young guy too. So I like seeing that type of judgment. I like seeing that extra thought being put into what he's doing and making sure that he's not putting himself in a bad spot that might cost us.
I believe he is the youngest player in the NALCS, with Mike Young being second youngest. So,
and young is in his name. So if you're younger than that guy, you're young.
You're real young, I gotcha. But Contractz, like you said, he has been around for a while now. Doesn't have that rookie status. Now up against Akaadian.
Akaadian gonna take a little bit of damage there, has to back himself away. Flash over the wall and a nice ultimate.
That was perfect. That stops the damage from the Graves ultimate. That stops the follow through there from Mickey as well. Beautifully done to avoid dying.
For anybody that doesn't know, remember the Zhao ultimate. As long as you have that whirlwind around you, no champion who stands outside the whirlwind can damage you with anything. So Graves' ultimate comes through, but it won't quite do the job. Let's take another look at this fight here.
Gets the 2 autos off. Contractz reloads, goes for the shots, but then, whew,
nope,
no damage. Yeah, that's, I believe it's called awareness is the name of
Is
the
that
actual,
the name of it?
The buff,
the
yeah.
debuff, or the buff
that
that you get?
Yeah, he gets increased awareness. So,
well, he was very aware that there was a big old bullet coming after his back, and he had to make sure he got himself out of it somehow. Good play there from Akaadian staying alive. Good play from Contractz to know he could win that fight. And now OpTic just bottom side, going to keep farming up. They are a little bit behind in terms of that CS. 105 on the Brand versus 96 on the Ezreal. But remember, there is 17 on the Braum, so there's still 96 on the Ezreal.
Yeah, and I like that a lot. Dhokla gonna roam down again and look for Mickey, who just blew his flash. So Mickey's like out of there. He's like, I can't even be on the same screen as this guy. There's 4 people from OpTic trying to pick on the new mid laner from Golden Guardians. They just all are in attendance.
They're just daring Golden Guardians to say, okay, gank PoE, go for it. We welcome it.
Everybody's like even 20 CS down on the top side here. He will gain some of that back. Dhokla will, because there's a minion wave, but it's mostly just like PoE. They're funneling a lot into him here in terms of just people showing up to his lane. Mickey, when every time he blows flash like he did there aggressively to try to get Akaadian, you're gonna have the Ornn ultimate come your way. And I think on the flip side here, what Golden Guardians want to do is they finally hit some power spikes. Deftly, level 9 or level 8 has the ultimate already. Matt has the ultimate too, but they're not going to pull the trigger on this bottom lane just because it's so easy for the Braum to go ahead and stop the pyroclasm.
Right. So one bounce hits him, and as long as nothing else has hit him first, everything just stops there.
Yeah, so wait for team fights. Try to like mix up the map a little bit. Maybe engage on somebody who doesn't have flash after you've blown it mid lane or in the jungle. So I don't think you constantly kind of bash your head against the bottom lane here as the side of Golden Guardians, and you want to find a way to maybe fight around that dragon.
Definitely does go ahead and expend the TP to get back to bottom lane, catch that wave as it collides with the turret. You'll see Contractz also picking up his red buff as well as that level 9. Akaadian still level 8 here on the Zhao. 1 kill between the two teams at 12 minutes. Considerably a slower game than what we saw in our last one. PowerOfEvil now with a multi-upgraded Hex Core has himself that upgraded laser, makes it so he can clear the waves that much more effectively, and that's one of the things that you brought up earlier, how effective he'll be able to shove this Lulu in.
Yeah, and so you can just constantly shove for wave clear. He's going to go for the mid turret, but Mickey, Akaadian is on him right now, and Golden Guardians, they're trying to look for a fight around this Drake to potentially set up, you know, their pyroclasm composition, but they're losing mid lane pressure here.
Mid lane very, very close to being taken down. Golden Guardians all hanging out in their jungle, keeping an eye out for OpTic. You can see a ward right there placed by OpTic that Golden Guardians are running around on top of. Ping's coming out from the side of OpTic Gaming as well. They know where the Golden Guardians are. They're doing a good job of tracking these movements so far.
And they see Braum is in the mid lane here. If Deftly ever catches Arrow with some abilities, he'd be very scared because he has the 2 penetration items right now. I'm actually just going to check. Arrow has 33 magic resistance. Deftly has 33 magic penetration. So he actually does do true damage to him.
True damage from all spells, and remember, Brand spells have quite a lot of damage just loaded into them at a basic level. The champion does, that's the one thing he does. He does a lot of damage, and he does it very well. So you've got to be on the lookout for this guy if you put yourself in a spot where those combos can find their mark. Akaadian here in the mid lane.
Well, they separated the Braum. They're going to go for Arrow here.
And they find this one. Arrow going to be knocked up into the air. There comes your wombo combo. The damage coming out. The pyroclasm will seal the deal. Definitely grabs the kill on that one. Matt still going to look to go even further with this. The Glacial Fissure finds the knockup. Big walks away, but he does so without his AD carry.
As soon as they get separated there, Matt zones away Big to the top side, and then they go ahead and they turn onto Arrow, who looked like he thought he was safe. He had his flash available and thought he was going to be able to actually avoid that engage, and that he may have thought it wasn't even going to come out. Like, hits him. He's walking forward here, and he just gets charmed and locked up. And yeah, Matt actually rounds them up. Matt does a really good job there of, instead of just standing on top of the Ezreal, he runs towards Big to get the charm off on him as well so that he can't disrupt or get in there as fast as possible.
And even though Big did use the Unbreakable to block everything except that first bounce of the ult onto his AD carry, 1 bounce was all they needed to proc the passive, get the secondary explosion, and find the kill in that 2 versus 2. OpTic, however, with first turret under their belt, still has about a 1,000 gold lead as Golden Guardians, again, make an attempt towards a neutral objective, but decide to back away.
I mean, use those neutral objectives to bait the fights with Brand. That's actually what I think you should do if you're this team, is when they go for these neutral objectives like the Drake, go ahead and show up. And Brand is one of the scariest champions in the entire game to actually have walk up to your team as you're doing an objective. It's just like, I'm so sorry, Brand. We were just kidding, man.
Yeah.
Back up.
No, that's your Rift Herald, Brand. We'll just go ahead and leave it alone. We'll see you later.
Yeah, here they all come.
Contractz and Mickey, the first 2 to show up to the scene. Definitely still coming up through mid lane there. Rift Herald down to about half HP. OpTic still wanting to keep going on this one.
Matt has flash and ultimate. If he can reach carries here.
But Matt might be in some trouble. Does end up popping the ultimate. Trying to make something happen here. Akaadian going to be protecting himself, utilizing the power of the ulti. Big going to drop first. Lourlo here on the front line. Dhokla going to be targeted next. Contractz having to run away from that PowerOfEvil ultimate. Lourlo taken very low. Akaadian having to run out here as well. Dhokla also going to be down very low. Arrow grabbed the kill onto Lourlo. Means this fight's going to continue for OpTic. Over the wall goes the AD carry, stunned up and kept away as PowerOfEvil continues looking for even more.
Man, and that was just the AoE. Cluster comes out there, and all of that, Contractz eventually gets the Rift Herald for himself. That fight was one that was just all over the place. We'll see it one more time here, because Matt wants to get a clean engage, but he gets spotted. He gets locked up by Akaadian, flashes to the side, so that's down, so we can't reach the backline here, and then Deftly throws out the abilities, Big goes down, and then the Pyroclasm comes down afterwards. Here it goes, bounces, Dhokla delivers it to Akaadian. It bounces between the two of them over and over again, so they have to try and get out now. But Lourlo is just getting pummeled as he tried to retreat to the bottom side of the fight. And Arrow wants to go in, and then gets stunned. So yeah, definitely playing the brand quite well here, lining up the stuns, getting those cues to make sure that people can't continue. But also, he didn't use his Pyroclasm immediately in the last fight. He waited for Big, the Braum, to just die, then he threw it out.
Has to make sure he gets all those bounces. In a 2 versus 2, only getting 1 hit on the ultimate, not that big of a deal. Well, you know, unless you really needed it, I guess.
Yeah.
But in a big 5 versus 5 team fight, those bounces need to show up for that brand to really carry his weight and do as much as Arrow on a traditional marksman is going to be able to do. Now in the mid lane, that Rift Herald looking to pay off. Needs a couple more hits to be able to take down this turret. But now the Golden Guardian's going to be in some trouble. Matt taken very low. Arrow firing off the True Shot Barrage. Not quite going to find the mark. Everybody from Golden Guardians walks away. And the turret goes down in the mid lane.
Yeah, they got themselves that turret. Seems like Shelly's still up. She's going to die, though, in just a second here. And now Mountain Drake?
This Mountain Drake that's been alive for 18 minutes.
It's so hard to approach, though. As OpTic, you really have to make sure you either get kills, because now Matt, he's in the base, and they kind of chunked him out with Contractz. Woo!
Contractz goes into the pit very early here. No fear whatsoever. Akaadian taken so low as Lourlo now moves up to zone the rest of OpTic Gaming away. Mickey taken very close to death himself off to the side. PowerOfEvil dropping the ultimate on that one to make it happen. As Arrow heads back towards the Drake, Akaadian showing back up to this one now as well. The Drake starts to reset, feels real bad, man, as the Golden Guardians swoop in now to pick up this objective that has been given over to them with OpTic's retreat.
And like I was saying, it's just so hard to go for these objectives when a Brand and a Rakan exist on the same team. Like, I would be scared and I'm so paralyzed of actually trying to start it as a shot caller. If you try to start that up, you could just lose the game straight off that. And I think that's what they're worried about here. And Dhokla was separating Deftly for a bit, but then as soon as he grouped up with the team, everybody just retreated on OpTic's side.
And if you're OpTic, let's go back to what you were talking about earlier. You remember Spring Split. You remember all those close games. You remember 70 minutes against TSM, where any single decision could be the difference between winning or losing. And they want to make sure that that's not the case again, where you feel like you just lose by inches. Playing well against this combination will be important, more and more so as this game goes on. We're about to crest the 20-minute point, so Baron's going to be live. That's another big fear point if you're up against a Brand Rakan combo that you're going to have to play around on the side of OpTic. And for Golden Guardians, this is another big thing like you were talking about, neutral objectives. These are a great way to force plays when you have these types of champions.
Because when you look at the engage that's available to OpTic, they have the Ornn, they have the Braum, they have lots of ways to start these fights off or protect from engages. And Golden Guardians, they have to find a way to get the Unbreakable out of Big and then have the fight start. So Matt is kind of their primary engage, and that's really it. Like, there's some pick where you could run Lourlo into the composition. It's not very effective. You want the Mundo to kind of...
Okay, I don't count walking at somebody menacingly as an engage.
Yeah,
you got to get in there with something.
It's a soft engage, I guess. I mean, I guess I engage all the time on every champion. Like, even my marksman, I'm in charge of the hard engage.
Walk at them menacingly. Grimace at them.
Yeah. But definitely they wanted to have that. They want to have that Unbreakable down from Big, and then they want the fight to start. And Matt is kind of the one in charge of rounding everybody up, like I've said before. But having the objective kind of do the work for you and bring them towards you, or have them all grouped up, that's just the bonus. That's kind of using the map to your advantage and using this kind of the layout of Summoner's Rift.
Last game you pointed out to me, Zyrene, 18 kills before 20 minutes. This game, 21 minutes in, 2 kills each side. A much slower paced game. Both sides being very careful, very methodical about how they want to approach this. And honestly, considering we prefaced this game talking about how these were the 2 lowest ranked teams from last split. These are the 2 teams that then have the most to prove, saying, yeah, we are competitors. We can be here and make sure that we're going back and forth, trading blow for blow with the best of them. That's what you've got to do. You can't go completely crazy. You've got to make sure that you have these things planned out well. You've got to make sure that you're thinking through these decisions and not putting yourself in a spot where you go back and say, oh, we made that call. That's why we lost.
Yeah, but I do think it's important to make a call that loses you the game instead of have the enemy make a call that loses you the game. Because then you can retro that, and instead of saying, oh man, they threw the game, I don't know how we actually improve off that, you instead are able to say, well, we messed up here slightly, here's how we adjusted.
You can see right there, Matt tried to use both Flash and Ultimate to go in after these guys, but they did not succeed. This is now OpTic's chance for a counterattack. The wombo in that combo for the Golden Guardians bottom lane is no longer there. And OpTic, likely realizing that, are looking for a window to punish.
And that means they gotta deny Baron vision. I don't think they have any more sweepers available. They have some control wards, but there's still vision inside the Baron pit. Try to push up, get that top lane turret, and open up kind of the top side jungle. Golden Guardians, blue side jungle. And there's the Ornn ultimate.
Comes through, Mickey trying to get away from this one. Has to pop the flash to do it. Still has wild growth available. Meanwhile, OpTic also take down the top lane tier 1, so they're making things happen in 2 different lanes at once here.
Yeah, but they got the flash from Mickey, they got the flash from Matt, so Matt's engage won't be as potent, and Mickey's, he's gonna be somebody that they've been throwing Ornn ultimates at him over and over again. They're gonna be something that he has to watch out for.
There are CS differences of 20, 20, and 20 in the top lane jungle and bottom lane comparisons. There is a CS difference of 50 to 60, depending on which wave PoE happens to be catching at the time, in the mid lane. PowerOfEvil is up 2,000 gold. He accounts for 80% of the team's gold lead over his lane opponent for the side of OpTic Gaming. The amount of attention they've been giving him, I'm not surprised by it. Again, he has had incredible performances in the past. They know he's got the star power to be the player that carries this game, and they're investing so much into that this game.
Yeah, I think of the game where he was popping off on Syndra last split at the end of it in spring, and then they still didn't win that game. It was like, what is going on? How did they not win that game? And OpTic, they're trying, and you can see, hold on, Matt.
It's Matt going in, able to find the catch out onto Big, and they take him down. That is 1 for 0, going the way of the Golden Guardians.
And now, Lourlo on the bottom side looked like he actually got chunked out simultaneously, and he's just ulting and healing back up. But now having the Braum down, I feel like this is a prime time to actually just position Jockey for Baron and potentially use Deftly's ultimate. Nobody's going to be able to block it. I think this is a great time to do so, but Lourlo's going to push onto that turret. It's almost dead, and he has that banner going for him. So Mundo E reset, get that extra AD. Dhokla has no mana. I think you might be able to train him down here.
Dhokla trying to walk away, realizes there's nothing left to fight in this one, does have to back out from that. Lourlo doing a good job picking up that objective, keeping this game as close as ever. 1,000 gold apart, 25 minutes in, Drake just now spawning. I mean, it's Ocean Drake #1 at 25 minutes. The relative value of this compared to almost any sort of risk associated with it is low. But right now it appears to be pretty free for the Golden Guardians, so Lourlo and Contractz will move in and sweep that one up.
And just pull Contractz, Lourlo to the bottom side. And now Deftly's going to go up top, clear that. And like you said, that's the second Drake, and the next one showing up is an Infernal. Oh, baby.
And that will be the last one that spawns before Elder. It'll spawn 31 minutes in. Anything after 35 would then be the Elder Drake. But most games these days, Zyrene, are not going to the point where you ever get to even think about the Elder Drake. So much League of Legends is played so quickly now because once a team gets a lead, they just start running away with it. The snowball is insane.
In this game, I wonder if that's going to happen. Because if the brand starts getting ahead, There's still ways to shut it down, but these teams are playing really slow and kind of risk-averse, I would say. Potentially like overly risk-averse because they've just been trading Baron Vision back and forth. And there was a pick onto Big there. They got the bottom turret on the side of Golden Guardians, and they still didn't start up the Baron or even look at it or deny Vision and potentially just tax the wards of OpTic. Instead, they went for wave shoves and resets, and now they're trying to go after Deftly, and they get his flash.
Flash from Deftly, but it comes at the cost of the ultimates of both PowerOfEvil and Dhokla. So OpTic Gaming will not be looking for any kind of a fight until those are back up. But once they are, they'll still have a couple minutes without Deftly being able to escape like that.
Yeah, you have like 60 seconds on those cooldowns for them. And then on the opposite side, you have 4+ minutes.
It's 80 for PowerOfEvil. I actually thought it was way more than that, but no. Yeah. You're right. They're gonna have like
sass me?
I said they're gonna be. All right. My bad. But now they're going after Dhokla. They're gonna take him right back with a blast cone, having to try to walk away from that one. Gravity Well buying him some time, trying to make a defensive position, and it's Dhokla going down 1-for-0 so far. Akaadian there in the middle, gonna be blocking it away with that awareness. As Matt is saved by the Wild Growth. Golden Guardians disengaging this one. True Shot Barrage comes out, grazes him on the back as he walks away. Close but no cigar. They're out of there. OpTic still looking to maybe find something else. It's Lourlo who finds himself knocked up into the air as the Glacial Fissure comes through. Akaadian got to be careful. No ultimate available to block the damage here anymore. PowerOfEvil looking to run these guys down. Throws out the Death Ray. Another Gravity Well placed to prevent them from trying to turn this one back around. Matt trying to run, does escape the second part of the laser, and OpTic can't get a revenge kill.
Yeah, even though Dhokla goes down and they keep chasing, they're very close to finishing off some members of Golden Guardians. I guess this is where the Ocean Drake will do a bit of work here and make it so that they can potentially still contest the Baron or stay out on the map and not have to reset on the side of Golden Guardians. And I like this. The Rylai's has now come through for Deftly. So even though he's not throwing out the ultimate, he's contributing so much to these fights where he's throwing down his E, his Q, and his W to make sure that people are slowed and then they bunch up a little bit heavier.
And one thing I want to point out, simply because we saw so much of it at MSI and it hasn't been as prevalent lately just because the games have been so short, it is double tier Ezreal still for Arrow. The second tier is around 300 mana out of 750 charged right now, so it still won't be online for a little while. But if we do get one of those games that goes for 35, 40 minutes, Arrow's damage potential is going to be very high up against a team without a true marksman.
Yeah, and when we have compositions that don't have marksman in them,
or Graves kind of counts, but...
Well, I'm just saying, like, a bot lane marksman, a crit marksman, or somebody who's going to buy, like, these scaling items, these 2, 3, 4 item power spikes, right?
Yeah.
But one of the big reasons is, of course, the items got nerfed, and the base stats for the ADs, or the marksman, were nerfed as well. But it's that they used to turn on at 2 items. We had Zeal IE. And so everybody who's actually playing Marksman right now is typically going for the Ezreal, the Kai'Sa, the Lucian. People who are going to build Blade of the Rune King, a Tyr, or a Rage Blade, and avoid kind of those 2-item power spikes or the 2-item power trough now, where you need 3 to really hit those big spikes. And so now we're seeing, once you get to that point, the Marksman becomes worth it. If you can circumvent that early game and get there, you're going to dish out a lot of damage, but you have to get to that point. And so far, OpTic, they're almost there. And it's even the thing with Viktor. He's at that 3-item spike. He's got a lot of damage.
Dhokla on the flank finds a 4-man knockup with the power of the ultimate, but there's no way for everybody else to get in there without running headlong into the Matt and Deftly combo. So OpTic doesn't want to go in any further on that. Dhokla returns back to the bottom side. Ornn ulti will be available for use again here in about, what would that be? A minute. Roughly there about. He does have some cooldown production on that one. Yeah, 60 seconds, sure. I think that's what we're going to go with. Matt trying to go in, trying to make the play happen. Go for the wombo combo. The turret goes down there in the mid lane. PowerOfEvil able to drop the ultimate, only finding the damage down on the Lourlo. The Contractz will try to escape. Definitely already goes down. Arrow still looking to chase one more Mystic Shot. Can't quite find it. Contractz still trying to get the hell out of dodge, and Arrow trying to prevent that as much as he can. Wants to continue this, tries to go for the Mystic Shot onto Baron to get the cooldowns. Contractz still too fast, but Akaadian says he's not fast enough. He picks up the kill, and OpTic Gaming have finally found their opportunity to head towards Baron. Braum dies without casting Pyroclasm. With Deftly out of the picture, you don't have that huge burst combo threat in that massive AoE. Baron down to 3,000 HP. Golden Guardians, no way into the pit, no way to contest, and OpTic Gaming have found their window.
They've killed exactly who they needed to. They killed Deftly, the big threat who doesn't have flash from the previous Ornn ultimate, and then they kill Contractz, and they blow a flash to do it, but it's 100% worth it. You get the jungler off the table, you're good to go. But look at that, PoE with the flash away from Matt, who snap engages on Rakan. He can't find the engage because PoE outplays it, and then PoE's on the right, Arrow's on the left, and they are being flanked and pincered in as they committed for that dive to get that turret. And that's how Deftly dies.
Deftly walks up trying to provide damage into this giant mess in the back, and PowerOfEvil just sweeps that ultimate over to him, hits him with both parts of the Q, and that's all she wrote as OpTic Gaming marches down the mid lane now. 3 turrets under their belts. The Ornn horn is blown. They shoot down that second part. They look to grab some sort of a collapse onto Deftly. Can't quite get it. OpTic now backing themselves away. Got to be careful. Contractz coming in from the side. Big taken very low here. Deftly, again, nearly falls, trying to chase after these guys. Has to be so very aware of his positioning. Mickey moving a little bit of a way up, just trying to make sure there's no way for these guys to try anything coming back around from the flank. But it's OpTic Gaming who head down towards that Infernal Drake that has just very recently spawned. They pick it up for themselves, their first one of the game. And that will add extra damage onto this Zhao, onto this Viktor, onto this Ezreal, who are all pretty darn scary.
Yeah, and they've gotten even scarier. We're seeing that Archangel staff very, very close, about 150 before it's Seraph's Embrace, so only about a minute more before Arrow will have that huge 3-item spike for Ezreal. But then on the flip side, Deftly, he's got a lot of damage from this brand, but I'm looking at the build from Mickey. Yep. When I have a brand, Mundo, Rakan, and Graves, I don't always think I'm going to buy an Ardent Sensor.
No.
It's an incredibly supported build here from the mid laner. The Athenes into the Banner of Command, into the Ardent Sensor, and now getting some substantial AP afterwards, but it just feels a little too defensive here against a composition that has some tanks in it, and you really do need to bring something more to the table because it's putting too much on the brand. I don't know who's going to be the best user of that Ardent Sensor. It would just be Contractz, really. Maybe a little bit of the Mundo.
And let's go back to what we talked about earlier about how the fact that Contractz is really the only physical damage on this team. I mean, you've got Lulu, you've got Brand, you've got Mundo, who does a lot of magic damage. I guess he does physical as well with the Titanic Hydra and the E buff, but look at the itemization from Dhokla. Banner, Adaptive Helm, Abyssal Mask. He's not taking magic damage anytime soon. It is very, very difficult to do anything meaningful to this guy, as this bannered up Baron minion will do quite a lot to this turret. Similar story to what we saw in the last game, where even though the team itself might not have the tools to walk up and threaten the turret, all you need is that minion. Keep it alive, and you don't have to get in range of Matt's combo.
Exactly. Takes away the backdoor bonus as well. And then you have this Lich Bane for the Viktor, PoE. Even though it looks like he doesn't do a lot of damage there to Lourlo, he does do a lot of damage to structures, as well as the squishies if he ever gets in contact with them.
Pretty much anything but Lourlo.
Look at that. Contractz, he just did a lot of damage to it. PoE, I do want to see his damage dealt after this game. See, it's something that they put some resources into, and it's paying off.
One last shot from that cannon minion does take down the inhibitor turret, and all they have to do is play Protect the President. The cannon minion's the president. Make sure he does whatever he needs. Oh, Mr. President!
When you have an inting president.
Feels Batman. All right, OpTic Gaming. Let's see what they can do with the rest of this. They've still got Baron buff. Oh, never mind. I was gonna read the timer,
I know,
and then it says 0, and I knew that it just wouldn't sound right. But OpTic Gaming, they get plenty out of that Baron buff. They get themselves away. They take down the first inhibitor turret, which is critical because it breaks that defensive line that can normally be so difficult to work around.
Yep, and now they find themselves 4,000 gold ahead. They don't have the inhibitor down, so they don't have that kind of extra 6th man on the map, and they're gonna have to start looking at these team fights again. The brand, once again, becomes an issue, and they have to worry about how much damage he's going to be doing to their squishies. And let's see here. There's 1,800 gold on Deftly. He's pretty close to his Zhonya's Hourglasses, which I would assume he would go for next here and try to complete that.
Speaking of Zhonya's, I also want to point out that there is a stopwatch on Akaadian's side. Even though he's not building towards a Guardian Angel, he just has it, so he can go in and do what he needs to do with reckless positioning and still have himself a way out.
And the same thing with Lourlo. These guys who are going to be frontliners and jumping in will go ahead, and I believe Lourlo can actually pop his ultimate, and then if he's low, he stopwatches, and he'll just keep healing while inside of the Zhonya's.
Because it'll work just like a Swain or something like that, right? I think I would put money that that's correct. We'll see if I lose money later on.
I don't see a lot of Zhonya's Mundos. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's a very rare circumstance that I'm not going to pretend like I'm very well versed.
But I'm pretty sure it does. Just like Vladimir, you throw out the R, you Zhonya's, you get the health back, right? So
we do have Baron coming up under 2 minutes now. Elder should also be hitting that point where we see his timer show up before too much longer. And with both Uber buffs soon to be on the table, the game is reaching critical mass. We're 5,000 gold apart. There we go. There's my Elder Dragon timer showing up. 5,000 gold apart. It's a lead for OpTic Gaming, but you still can't count out Golden Guardians, not with the wombo combo potential we've been talking about this entire game. It's going to come down to who plays it right. We've talked about potentially playing this game too safe on both sides so far, and someone eventually has to make the call. Here's where we go for Drake. Here's where we go for Baron. Here's where we turn for the fight. And depending on who calls that right, that could decide the entirety of this, what has been longer than average game.
And you're talking about the shot calling here. Both these teams made shot calling adjustments. Golden Guardians swapped out High for Mickey. Matt has apparently taken over a lot of the duties. And then Big on the side of OpTic has been somebody who's kind of stepped into those shoes, kept the morale up. And I'm also looking at both these supports because one of them, Matt, is in charge of the engage. He's in charge of the roundup so that you can have Deftly get off the perfect ultimate. And Big is in charge of positioning in a way where Deftly can't have that devastating team fight impact. So I am watching both of these guys intently, one for the offense on Matt and one for the defense on Big.
It is a direct contest. Not just the fact that, hey, we happen to be on opposing teams, but I am explicitly trying to stop your goal in Big's mission statement towards Matt right now. OpTic playing towards the bottom side here. Baron 15 seconds away. Elder 30 seconds away. Dhokla pushing out that bottom lane, getting a big wave, marching towards that inhibitor. And remember, this is the lane that does not have the turret to protect it. If OpTic can keep that wave pushing, buy enough time, keep Golden Guardians here, all of a sudden you have this big threat, and Golden Guardians are put in a really rough spot.
Yeah, and there's a bannered up minion in that bottom side cannon, but hold on, there's the engage!
Fight's already going off. Matt looking to go in, able to try to find that wombo combo, already taken down. PowerOfEvil goes on a killing spree, and Lourlo's tanky, but not tanky enough. Arrow grabs the kill, and it's 3-0 going the way of OpTic Gaming. Surely this will be the end of the game. PowerOfEvil trying to run down Mickey. The flash from Akaadian to look to follow this one up. He will be slowed down, but OpTic has no need to head for either of those big buffs. They have a massive wave in the bottom side. The teleport is going to be used on top of the banner minion as well as one of his little buddies as Arrow and Dhokla move themselves up. The rest of OpTic comes in behind them, and unless Mickey and Deftly can pull off a miracle, this is going to be game.
See, there's 20 seconds on Contractz. Dhokla's gonna go straight for it. Definitely still has the ultimate, but I feel like if he throws it out big, just negates it. There's this gigantic wave. They're engaging.
No way out here for Golden Guardians. Forced back into their spawn platform. PowerOfEvil again just throwing down those defensive gravity wells, keeping them away. It was a long trek getting there, but OpTic Gaming find their first win of the split.
38.5 minutes. They take down the Golden Guardians, and PoE, you can see the smile on his face there. He definitely had a fantastic game. They were able to punish Mickey, the newest member of Golden Guardians, and had a very, kind of, I would say, easy time throughout that mid-game where they didn't really have to pull the trigger on anything. I just took a look at the damage.
Woo!
It is overwhelmingly in favor of PoE.
Yeah, that ain't even close. That is an incredible amount of work being put in from this mid laner that we talked throughout the game, and I want to talk about it again, just how much they invested in him. You saw multiple different times, 2, even 3 other players just hanging around the mid lane as he pushed up, making sure there was nothing they could do to him, constantly blowing Mickey's flash, making Mickey afraid to do anything against PowerOfEvil. This player that normally plays so aggressively was stuck under turret for quite a long time.
Yeah, making sure that he was kind of a non-factor. And then when he built defensive, he wasn't going to be a large contributor in these fights. And so they really only had to worry about 1 or 2 threats on the side of Golden Guardians, able to make sure that Deftly can't get into that backline, make sure that he can't access that damage onto those hard carries. And PoE, I definitely think, had a fantastic game to start off the season. It looks like he hasn't missed any beats coming over from spring.
And the way that they played it, the slow way that they played it, whether or not you think it may have been too cautious or just cautious enough, I still never saw a fight where 5 people got grouped up into a Pillar of Flame conflagration, pyroclasm, wombo combo, and avoiding the Golden Guardians win condition like that and playing to their own is what got OpTic this win.
Yeah, it was a good draft from them where they were able to kind of counter the Braum bottom lane, or the Brand bottom lane with the Braum, And it was really good from Big to be on top of that, the guard duty to make sure that they couldn't get that good engage, because the brand has to step forward for it. As soon as he steps forward for it, it's going to get blocked, and then he's going to get engaged on. And at the end, we saw that Matt tried to make it happen. He did get a good roundup, but it was PoE and the rest of the team that just bopped Matt because people couldn't really follow him right in there. Brand, if he has to flash forward for that ultimate, it's not worth it.
And even though the game had a slower pace to it, whenever OpTic did find a win, it was an exclamatory win, not a declaratory win. It wasn't, hey, we killed 2 guys. It was, hey, we killed 2 guys, Baron. That's what I like to see. That's what I like to especially see in the opening week, because it shows a lot of promise heading forward. But now, to hear about their win, let's send it down to Ovly and OpTic's newest member.
Thanks, guys. Big congratulations on your victory. How are you enjoying your time on OpTic, and what's it like being the newest member?
I actually love being with OpTic because Tristan's really funny, and Matt's, a musclehead, so you teach me a bit. Errol's just Korean, typical Korean guy. And Dhokla, he's just there.
How about team morale? How are you fitting in with all the other members?
I think we actually mesh a lot pretty well. Like, Errol's really nice. He always tries to interact with me, only, of course. Tristan, he just interacts with everyone. Matt, musclehead. Dhokla just stands there.
Well, the last time we saw you, you were the ball of sunshine on Team Dignitas. So what have you been up to since then?
I actually have been doing nothing. I've just been playing, RuneScape while searching for a team, and here I am.
Do your RuneScape skills translate over to League pretty well?
Yeah, I just click once, and then that's all.
Great. Well, now that you're back in the competitive League of Legends scene, what are you hoping to accomplish?
Well, I hope that I can prove I'm not a 10th tier support guy. I'm actually a top tier, and that's about it.
Well, good. Here's hoping that you're able to prove yourself in the future. Congratulations again on your victory. And for more on this game, let's hear from the State Farm Analyst Desk.
Thank you very much, Ovly. Big looking to secure, or rather cement himself as a top tier support. And again, in kind of the world of the craziness that is the current meta, at least typically the supports are still playing support champions. But the rest of the map that they have to work with, the idea that, typically being one of the people charged with the macro strategy for a team, supports, how do you even begin to tackle, how a team should work game to game to game, given a role like that when Yasuo's and role swaps exist?
Luckily, he had a pretty big telegraph move where he's like, I press E when I see, the brand's R. It's like the Gragas barrel. I'll block that thing. That looks like a good ability to block. So he had a little bit easier of a job than some of these other players have to deal with. This one was pretty telegraphed. Anytime the brand E, because it's so much of their team fight damage, gets blocked, it's good.
Yeah, and this is coming off a game as well where we saw a Mundo and Trundle run over everyone because the other team didn't have damage. And this game, I think, was at least a lot more standard for how OpTic needed to play it. They had a bunch of damage on Viktor, they had a bunch of damage on Ezreal, and they weren't looking to make extremely aggressive plays, and honestly didn't have to. And it was on Golden Guardians to find the right initiations, and when you could minimize losses in the way OpTic did, where they would usually just lose the Braum, who had blocked the brand ultimate, so the rest of his team was generally healthy. It worked out pretty well for them and pretty well for Big.
Yeah, minus the one-shot potential that kind of combo has with the brand, the straight team fighting front to back should favor the standard team comp, and I think you kind of saw that over the course of the game. That scaling advantage took over. You factor in the fact PowerOfEvil had a great laning phase versus Mickey, shut him down really hard. There was no explosive fighting around the bot lane where they're getting run over, and so a slow game pretty much favors this team comp. And that right there, you had Deftly not drop his ult on the initial engage, which was smart because the Braum had the shield up, but then you have to drop it there. Just running away without your ultimate is a completely lost team fight. You have to drop it.
And man, that is rough, actually, seeing a Mundo be the highest damage on the team when a brand is in the mix, right? Yeah. And again, it kind of speaks to both what OpTic did to shut down that brand in the team fight phase so that he can't get those big AoE ultimates out and really rack up the damage. It speaks well to what OpTic's done and maybe to some degree the execution or maybe not drafting the tools they need to enable the brand. And that's where I want to point to that mid lane. You got Mickey, first game in the North American LCS.
Coin flip Mickey.
He comes in on Lulu with no traditional ADC to play behind. Graves is his best option. One, what do we think about the pick? Two, how do we feel about the fact that he, in a sense, hard lost the lane against the Viktor?
I mean, I don't hate the Lulu in the meta. I think there's a lot of champions that combos well with. Even Graves, yeah, sure. Just like you're there to enable him because he's a short-range champion, give him shields and HP. The Ardent Sensor is a little strange on him to me. He was losing lanes, so he didn't need any more damage. They have Brand and Mundo for magic damage, so I got the idea of it. It's just like you can't lose the mid lane that hard. Lulu is supposed to be a pretty, safe, stable pick, which he got destroyed.
He got focused really hard. I do want to give a little bit of credit to Akaadian for finding the right ganks, having good lane control for PoE to go to work, but that isn't how the matchup is supposed to play. Like, this is something we're actually pretty used to, is the Viktor versus the Lulu, and the Lulu should have more lane pressure than that. And that's one of the biggest things that actually allowed OpTic to extend this to a 38-minute game.
Yep, 38 minutes, as you mentioned, typically then when you're looking at the more traditional comp, the one that can fight front to back will be the one that comes away with the victory. That's exactly what OpTic did. Let's remember that these were two of our lower ranked teams at the end of the season. So, of course, picking up that early win going to be a very nice boost to the morale for OpTic. But in reality, I think when a lot of people look at the way League of Legends is being played right now, this is the time when squads like this should be able to pick up wins, because things should be all topsy-turvy and being flipped on their head.
And listen, today isn't necessarily what we expected, because I know Mark and I hyped ourselves up by watching about 50 games of League of Legends around the world with LCK and LPL, and by the time we're seeing a game with an Aatrox top and a Nautilus brand support, we're like, boring.
Pretty boring, yeah.
So our
we had no
perceptions
super comps.
are a little colored, but it did feel like NA was a little bit tamer than what we expected. As you mentioned, no super comps, which are the gold funnel compositions we've seen elsewhere, where one player gets 300 CS by 20 minutes and tries to hypercarry. And also, the more standard it looked, the more successful the team was. We saw 3 traditional marksmen win today. And we only saw, I think, like 4 of them played. So those were actually the most successful things, the things that people are practiced on, the things that they know how to move around the map on, team fight around, position around. That's what was winning.
The other thing, too, is like the strange bot lanes that we were seeing. 2 of them were Brand, which we had already known about, people talked a lot about. So it wasn't like there were a ton of surprises over the course of the day when, like you said, we were all like, let's see what crazy stuff. NA's the craziest region. I think you got us beat today.
Yeah, we say that, and of course, it's only day 1 for us. The rest of the league's mostly being concluded for their initial week, and so we'll see what kind of pops out tomorrow. I mean, just by virtue of the number of unique champions played across the world, I like to believe that there's still a lot left to be seen or discovered here in North America, and I think that'll be the next question, right, is which teams continue to push the envelope in terms of ingenuity and creativity, and which teams see those win records of the standard compositions and say, well, maybe we just go back to that while everyone else is messing around with this, with all this other stuff.
I think it makes sense for some teams. Like, OpTic doesn't have the players that scream, like, we're going to go crazy here. And, like, so I understand for them, the Viktor straight up PoE's play style. That makes a lot of sense. Echo Fox, I don't expect them to calm down at all. Like, that looked like you heard Huni kind of bragging, like, this is the tip of the iceberg. Like, get ready for my champ pool. It's going to be crazy.
Well, so then let me ask you this, just very specifically on that point, Huni. You mentioned we could see him in 4 different roles, quite possibly. Like, what are the kinds of champions that we would see him on in those 4 different roles? Like, if he were to go mid lane, what champion do you see Huni playing in the mid lane? Is it just an Aurelia?
Yes.
Okay.
He could definitely play Aurelia in the mid lane. He could play Yasuo in the mid lane if he really wanted to. It depends on what you count a Karthus as, like the Smite Karthus, or the Smite Kai'Sa we saw.
Right, is that the mid laner or the jungler?
Exactly, because they bring double Smite, but he'd be positioned in the mid lane. Or you could consider a Graves or a Yi for him, which is another one of the gold funnel strategies. Those are the types of things that Huni could pull out.
I think specifically, too, with Huni, it'll be a lot about what he's playing against. He's like a very counter-pick heavy player, especially when he's in the top side. But that draft that we saw, it was clear you should not play Yasuo into Ornn. You should play the Mundo into Ornn. Well, he's the Yasuo player, so you move him around away from that Ornn pick.
If the matchup were better in the top lane, he'd be fine taking it there as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
I expect him to move a lot more based off how the 2 champions interact than like maybe sometimes some big overarching strategy like the super comps. But otherwise, it's probably going to be pretty counter-pick focused.
All right, well, what we're calling a tame day here in North America at the start of Summer Split. With the first day of the split behind us, let's review which teams made their fans proud. Clutch Gaming, Echo Fox, Team Liquid, TSM, and OpTic Gaming all started summer with a win, while the other 5 teams will get their shot at a win tomorrow. Let's check back in with our predictions, though, from earlier in the day as they fly up.
How the guests? Did the guests
I'm
get 4?
honestly amazed that you guys
the guests got 4.
Oh, they did,
still
right.
somehow evened up at the end of the day.
This is what we're talking about. It's a tame day.
I thought with 4 different picks that we were going to have some crazy
That's what I'm
lopsided
saying.
record.
It is a tame day. You think it's like, oh my God, Mark and Jad are so different. We tied.
But also our foreign representatives from the LCK and the LPL outdid
Bring in
both teams.
Uzi,
They don't even
bring in
watch this
Ming, bring
league,
in
I don't
Bang.
think, gentlemen.
Yeah,
But
I
they
think-
might have a better sense of the meta. Who knows?
Wasn't Uzi's answer for why he picked OpTic over Golden Guardians? He's like, I don't think Golden Guardians was very good last year. Like, that was it.
year.
That was,
last year when it didn't even,
or last
didn't
split or
even
something.
exist. That'd be great.
I mean, not bad.
Yeah, I don't know. But hey,
We're tied.
well done to the guests, getting us off to an early lead. That's who I'm rooting for this split. The two of you need to pick it up.
So we're gonna keep varying it.
Yeah, we are going to keep varying it up.
Can we
with the
nemesis
guests.
draft the guest one week and see if we can beat it?
That would be pretty good.
I don't know. The amount of shenanigans that was cooked up last split makes me scared for like what the future goes when we're trying to push it further with guests.
Yeah, just wait. The producers have lots of ideas. I'm certain of it. All right, we'll see if Mark or Jack can take a lead in predictions after the games tomorrow as we pull up the schedule. Presented by Jersey Mike's. First up, TSM and FlyQuest challenge one another on this new patch, followed by Team Liquid versus Golden Guardians. And 2 more matchups before we wrap up the first week of play with Cloud9 versus OpTic Gaming. Taking a look at our 5 scheduled matches tomorrow. What's the one that excites you the most?
Ooh, I'm looking at COG 100 Thieves right now as far as what I'm going to have the most trouble predicting. The exciting thing is I just want to see Echo Fox again.
Yeah.
I want to see where Hootie goes. I want to see what team comes with.
I think it's really interesting too because Clutch also was one of those teams picking a non-standard bot lane. They had the Vladimir down there. Paulo said he struggled a little bit with it, but it's the kind of thing where you can hopefully see some confidence and they stick with that, and then that means both teams, because we know Echo Fox is probably going to do some crazy stuff. That should be a really interesting game.
All right, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Now for myself, the casters, and the entire live broadcast crew, thank you for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow for more of the NALCS. Good night. 14 million possible outcomes. Only one where NA wins Worlds.
I don't feel so good. I don't want to go.
Please welcome to the stage, Team Liquid!
Pretty good damage there. He's always gonna die right away! Pope goes in for the double top. The knockouts are there. That's one. Looking for the second. They're gonna get it all. And the team is gonna be routed.
Let's go.
Stopwatch. Here comes Zoe in the back line. Finds a knockup on second charm. Galio into the mix as well. First kill gonna come around as Aftermoon was gone. 5v4 in the battle. A second kill, a third. Team Liquid pick up where they left off with an undefeated game against 100 Thieves. It's gonna be a 0. Oh, gonna get the knockup! He's gonna go down, Darshan!
Let's go, Dishan.
That's me! Here comes Kaisa! Sven picks up the other marks from the bottom lane. A big knockup. They've picked up so many. Whoa, just going for the tower dive now. Inside the base. Where can Darshan even go?
Had my stats.
Yeah.
Do you have a brain today?
Yeah.
You gonna win today?
Yes, sir.
That is not the start Cloud9 wanted. Oh, he might just be dead. Into the mid lane. Golden Glue answers back. 5v4 in the fight. Licorice has been trying to join this one, but look at the burst coming across. They've already picked up 3. Clutch Gaming wiping the floor with Cloud9.
Arrow gonna be knocked up into the air. There comes your wombo combo. The damage coming out. The pyroclasm.
I got him.
OpTic Gaming find their first win of the split. Nice taunt there. They still get him.
I don't have it. Go.
I think they have no Lulu, right? Yeah, we can go here. Ornn is on the side. We're good.
Hey, look at
Nice.
Go.
OpTic though rampaging into the back lines.
Turtle taken low. Flame taken low. FlyQuest taken out. And that is your ace for Echo Fox.
They are saying hashtag it's our time.